Hi everybody, I want to talk about intersectionality, and this is coming from my personal life, where I'm part of a multicultural family. My wife is Hispanic. She's actually from Tabasco, Mexico. If you don't know, that's the very, very southern tip of Mexico. So she's from about as far south as it could possibly go without being Guatemala. My sister-in-law is African American, so she's black. And that's my family. And so, of course, race and culture over the years has, come up a number of times, usually humorous, usually in jest, usually teasing, poking fun of each other. But there are just some observations that I've made about my family life and what I see on social media, what I see in mainstream media, and then what I see just, general around the campfire, people talking in person. And I think it's very important because when it comes to having somebody who's an abuser and a manipulator, and, multiculturalism is a factor, the dynamic can shift quite a bit. So if you're sensitive racially, this may not be the video for you. Just understand I'm going to be speaking, pretty plain and matter of fact. Nothing racist. I'm not using any slurs or anything, but this is just from my family life. So realize that, understand that. The thing that I see, that I observe, there's this concept of intersectionality. What intersectionality is where you have two or more people, individuals, let's say a group of individuals, and all these individuals have their unique, specific traits that make them unique individuals. I'm a white man with a college degree. My wife is a Hispanic woman without a college degree. My sister-in-law, she's half white, half black, and a female. My brother is obviously a man. So when you have intersectionality, that means you're drawing a line through all the commonalities of a group of people, right? So all the men are together, all the women are together, all the white people together, all the Hispanic people together, all the black people together. And then you have all the Hispanic women, all the Hispanic men, all the black women, all the black men, all the black part of the family, all of the Mexican part of the family, all of the white part of the family. We don't have any gay family members that I'm aware of, so I can't really speak out of experience on that, but you see the point. The point is, through intersectionality, my identity shifts. So in one context, I'm a man. In another context, I'm a white man. In yet another context, I'm an educated person, or I'm an educated man. I'm an educated white man with a college degree and a career. So I mean, the number of intersections is endless. Now, how this comes into play, if I'm in a conversation with a black man, a black friend, we can have these conversations about, race and history. So we'll put this out here. So let's run through a hypothetical conversation with my black friend who is black and a guy, right? We can have that normal conversation. We all know history. We all know about, civil rights. We all know racism is still alive and well today. It is not nearly as mainstreamed as it used to be. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. We can talk about the histories of our grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, all the injustices that were done back then. We can have these conversations. And within these conversations, we can have perfectly normal, healthy conversation in which we both learn something. Because I did not grow up black, my friend did not grow up white. We can have a honest, candid conversation about how my grandparents and great-grandparents were history book racist. Because it sounds exactly like, to me, having just been born within the last few decades, I can go read a history book, or I can call my grandmother, right? And then it's like time traveling. 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s don't really sound like a very pleasant time to be, or place to be. But we can have that healthy conversation. But now let's shift the conversation from a healthy, mutually educating conversation to an argument. So let's say that we want to argue about whether or not racism is still a factor to success today, and how racism is not what it used to be, and how if you don't succeed, you can't play the race card because society is better than it ever has been. These are very spirited, very emotional conversations / arguments to have. And where intersectionality comes into play is my intersectional identity as a white male with a college degree can have tremendous impact on the conversation with a black male who has, historically struggled, right? That identity matters a lot. When you use intersectionality in an argument, something somewhat, for lack of a better word, something dastardly can happen very quickly, very easily. And that is, you as an individual can possess simultaneous identities. You can simultaneously have a good identity and a bad identity, right? In making the case of modern day racism being a factor in contributing to success or struggle, it's very easy to frame me in a bad context with a bad negative identity. I can also be construed to be positive. For example, encouraging, saying, don't let these things hold you back. You're a great guy. You've been my friend my entire life. The world's still imperfect. Racism is still out there. Just because, two doors don't knock, there's thousands upon thousands of doors. You've knocked on 37 of them. There's still 963 doors left to knock on. Don't let the initial 37 dissuade you from the remaining hundreds of doors. You can do it. I know you. I have faith in you, right? That's positive, right? But if he doesn't hear it that way, he could either say, thank you for the encouragement, or he could say, that's easy for you to say because you're a white man with a degree and you've never lived my struggle, right? So there's a positive. There's the number of reactions are endless. Okay. Now, after having built on all of that, let's introduce my wife to the mix, who is a Hispanic female. Okay. She comes in and she says it doesn't matter because women earn 77 cents on the dollar. There's a pay gap among the genders. We live in a patriarchal society in which systemic control is typically given to men, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? Look at what happens to the dynamic then. Before she entered the picture, I was the oppressor as a white man. My friend was the oppressed as a black man. Right? So now he has my black friend. Once my wife comes in and says that, he's no longer a black man being oppressed because he's a minority. He is now an oppressor because he is a male member of the patriarchy. Well, that can make his head spin, right? Makes my head spin. Makes everybody's head spin. That's what makes it such a dastardly... I'm stuck on that word, I swear to God. But that's what makes this such an effective strategy to stirring up conflict. When you use intersectionality, it can be used for good things. Oh, don't get me wrong. It can be used for plenty of good things. And if you're mature and smart and capable and empathetic and understanding and actually care about learning from each other, it can be a wonderful thing. However, if you're shallow, if you're maladaptive, if you're a conflict seeker, if you're disordered and all you want is to fight, it is incredibly effective at starting a fight. We've We have all seen that, what happens. We've all been down that road, right? And the point of it is, it's subjective. Intersectionality is completely subjective. And the thing about it is intersectionality relinquishes 100% of the control to whoever is speaking. So the intersectional identities of everybody can turn on a dime if the person speaking wants them to. And that means whoever is speaking can suddenly define you as an oppressor. They can suddenly define you as oppressed. And there's no positive outcome. And that's what I want to get into with this. That's my overall point. When you start bringing intersectionality into conflict, there are no positive outcomes because it pits oppressor versus oppressed. Neither one of those is a positive identity to have. And as such, it is endlessly irresolvable. And if it's endlessly irresolvable, that means it can be endlessly argued. So let that sink in for a minute. You know, if you're a person of color, particularly if you're a black man, I'm sure you have been on both sides of that issue. I'm sure you've been on the side of being discriminated against, racial profiling, all these horrible things, and then turned around on top of it, and then being accused of being an oppressor of women, of being a patriarchy, of being a man, all these things like toxic masculinity, and all of these things being thrown around. You know, there's no, when you fight and argue along the lines of intersectionality, the only person who wins is the one who was wanting a fight. Because there's no resolution. There's no positive outcome. There's nothing to be gained. There's no knowledge transfer. You will never make anybody the wiser. You will never help somebody see your perspective. You will never make the world a better place. You will never, ever get people to understand how you feel if you are having this argument with somebody who is looking for the fight and who is using intersectionality on purpose. And I hope to God that this helps somebody, because I've seen it. I've seen it, and it is nothing but destructive. So, what can you do? Defend your identity as a whole individual. Defend yourself as an individual, as a unique human. Speak to yourself. Speak to your life experiences. Speak to your feelings. Or if you're in it with a narcissist, walk away, go no contact. That's really kind of sort of the smartest thing to do anyways. But I'm just saying, if you're ever in a conversation in general, then, you know, that's probably the position you should have. So, that's about all I got on the matter. Please like, comment, or share. I would love to hear from anyone who's experienced perpetual fighting and arguing over intersectionality, and had these endless intersectional conflicts that happen. I'd love to hear your stories. So please sound off in the comments. Let me know what you've been through, and I'll see you on the next video.